I'd got up, I didn't know where he was. He just wasn't downstairs where I'd left him playing on his Xbox. And about 9:30, 2 police officers knocked at the door and said that he'd been arrested and that I needed to get out of the house because they needed to search the house. And I was like, well, I thought it was drugs. I was like, there's no drugs in this house. I know this house from top to bottom. There's absolutely nothing in here for you to find. And they were like, that's not necessarily what we're looking for. And I was like, I had absolutely no idea that anybody had even died at this point. For a whole 24 hours, I didn't even know who it was that had died. I then went to my auntie's house with the dogs, and then the police came to interview me, these 2 detectives. They were absolutely lovely, the nicest men I could have possibly had to deal with it. And they said that he'd been arrested on suspicion of murder. And I was absolutely hysterical. I thought maybe he'd knocked someone down with his car. I thought maybe he'd got in a fight. Everything was going through my head. Never even occurred to me that he'd been with another woman. It never even crossed my mind. And then the next morning I got a phone call from a friend. She'd seen police search. She'd heard that police were searching my house, and she was a friend of Sophie's, and she said, what's going on? Sophie's dead. And that was when I put it all together and was like, oh my God, he's killed Sophie. But at that point, I still thought he'd maybe crashed his car. It wasn't until the police officers then came back, the 2 detectives, to interview me again. And they were like, do you want to get your auntie and mum out of the room? And I was like, no, why would I want to do that? They're here, just do it. And he was like, no, get them out of the room. So I was like, right, okay, I'll do this on my own. And then he said, they couldn't tell me what he'd done, but they said it's going to lead to your own conclusions based on our questioning. And the first question they asked me was, did Sam ever strangle you when you were having sex with him? And that was how I found out what he'd done.
What did you feel like when that question was asked of you? What went through your mind? How did it make you feel?
I think I just thought, oh my God, this is going to be with me for the rest of my life. I felt like it had completely changed my life in that one instant. And I said to the police officer, I went, every time I see you, you just drop a ton of bricks on me. And they were just so, apologetic and lovely, but it was awful. But I do remember thinking, well, he did like doing that, so obviously it was a massive shock, and it was really, but at the same time I remember thinking, right, okay, well, that makes sense, really.
From when we talked last time about how you explained that you answered the question that they asked you, while still not knowing what had happened to Sophie, still not knowing the details, where you said, yes, he did like to choke, he used to do it to me, I made it clear that I didn't like it, so therefore he stopped doing it. Knowing what you then found out, knowing what you know now, had they asked you that question at the time, would you have answered it differently if you had known the full facts of the case?
I think I even fell for his narrative at first and was thinking, well, he didn't mean to kill her. But now, that if they interviewed me now, I would absolutely 100% talk about the fact that he never discussed things with me before actually doing them. It was never like, I want to do this. Do you want to do this? He would just do it. And then afterwards, sometimes I would freeze and think, okay, or maybe a lot of the time I was drunk and I just went along with things that I just didn't want to do. But how many women have been in situations like that where something's happening and you do just freeze? I mean, I was telling you earlier about my friend speaking to me the other day that said that a man had spat in her face whilst she was having sex with him. She'd never had sex with this man before, and he just, in the middle of sex, just spat on her. She didn't see it as assault. She said she froze. And I think that's just what women do. They just freeze and go into some sort of survival mode where they think, right, I just need to get through this. And it's just not the narrative that it should be.
And you said, when we met last time, something that has really stayed with me about how had you died at his hands rather than Sophie, that you think it would have gone to trial and it would have been taken much more seriously, and he might be serving life for murder now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is this idea, isn't there, that there's the perfect victim of a murder, and Sarah Everard might have been that type of victim, where blonde, middle class, really innocent, doing everything right as well. Whereas with Sophie, from what I mean, obviously I didn't know her that well at all, but from what I've heard about her and her life, she was vulnerable. She had a lot of alcohol issues, mental health issues, and I think that maybe the police looked at that situation and thought, if this goes to trial, she will get dragged through the mud and she'll get put on trial just as much as Sam is, because that's what our justice system does with cases like this. They just drag women through the mud. And I think with me, if this had happened to me, they would have published pictures of me in my graduation robes. They would have said, oh, she's like a really promising PhD student. The media would have probably picked it up more. And I just think that's massively unfair, because that doesn't make one woman's life more worthy than another one's just because of their difficult background. If anything, we should be shouting about her more, because she deserves, the system's let her down. We were in the local pub and I saw her at the bar, and she had like scratches and scrapes all down her and bruises down one side, and she was crying, and she was drunk. And I went over and said, like, oh, are you okay? And invited her to sort of come and stay with us, like come with our group. Men were then trying to crack onto her, which I thought was absolutely unbelievable. But she's not actually from this village, so it was an unusual thing to see somebody in the local pub that everyone was like, who is that? And then at the end of the night I said, do you want to come back to our house and stay there? And she did. And I think that's the night that they started their, I don't really want to refer to it as a relationship, but
He started targeting her.
Targeting her, yeah.
So you saw a vulnerable woman. Your instinct was that she wasn't safe. So you protected her. You brought her back to your home to protect her. You must have felt terribly betrayed at what happened after that.
Yes. Certainly when I found out that something had happened between them, it did feel like that. But then after what's happened now, and the more I've learned about her, I can see exactly what it was. And really, Sam then starting to try and have a relationship with somebody like that, when you've seen that she's come into the pub because she's battered and bruised, what does that say about him? You know, he was clearly targeting somebody that was extremely vulnerable, even back then. That we're talking 4 or 5 years ago now.
Have you heard much from him since he's been in prison?
Yeah, he was writing me letters. To be honest, they were absolutely infuriating, because when his defence said that he'd shown no self-pity, I completely disagree with that, because these letters show nothing but self-pity. It was all, I don't belong in here, I have nothing in common with the other prisoners, I'm really down and depressed. And although he had sent letters where he was saying sorry, and I'm sorry for this, and I'm sorry for upsetting your family, and I'm sorry for betraying you and everything, he never actually said in the letters, I am sorry for killing Sophie. It's like he thinks this has happened to him rather than because of him. He's not taken responsibility for what he's done at all. He talks about the dogs a lot. He was thinking like, oh, I hope I get out in time to be able to see my dog. So it's not even that killing a woman is killing him inside. It's, I'm not going to see my dog, that's killing me.
And her mum didn't get to say goodbye to Sophie.
I think with him, it's this idea that he doesn't like people thinking that he's a bad man, and he wants to try and paint himself out to be, I am a good person deep down, please listen to me. But, you know, how dare you send a letter to me trying to redeem yourself from what you've done? You've literally killed a woman and betrayed me in the worst way possible and put me through absolute hell for 7 months. So in the end, I did just contact the prison And I said, please, can you block his correspondence? Because I thought, there's no getting through to you. You're completely deluded. It just reeks of self-pity. And I think it's a massive insult to Sophie and her family that he is saying that he's struggling when there's 2 kids out there that have lost their mum.
Do you still have the letters?
Yeah.
So there's a sign, like a road sign with Louise on it, and it looks like it might be you standing there with the 2 dogs. And are you supposed to be walking towards the sun? What the actual is it?
I have absolutely no idea. When I got it, it was like, just what on earth is this? It baffled me, to be honest. I've never seen him draw before. There's like stuff on the back about, oh, you need to go off and enjoy your life, you need to go on holidays, you need to do this, that and the other, you need to finish your PhD. And it felt like he was giving me permission to go and move on, and that was absolutely infuriating.
Oh, I think we call it mansplaining, don't we?
Yeah. I call it narcissism. But
yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was him giving me permission to change my name. I told him to stop sending letters to me. Every letter that I got was just putting me back 10 steps after I was trying to move on. And then a couple of months later, I got another letter off him, and it was almost like, and the way it was written was, you know, like saying I've got nothing in common with the prisoners and I'm so down and depressed. He even put in it that he liked Gogglebox now. You know, like he thought we still had some sort of relationship.
Hang on a minute, let's get back to this. He's got nothing in common with the other prisoners. What, because they're scum and he's a respectable person?
I think that's how he sees it, that he's not one of them. He's not a criminal.
Oh, he just killed a woman. He just killed a woman.
Yeah. But I think he thinks that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it could have happened to anybody, and he didn't mean to do it. You think you've got nothing in common with these people. And actually, one of the things that really struck me was you've been given more opportunities than probably a lot of the men in there put together. You've had every opportunity to have a good life, whereas for a lot of them, crime has been their only option. He had options, and he chose to do that instead.